Something shocking just went down. Washington didn't see it coming. 10 African nations stood tall, stared down the most powerful country on earth, and said one word: no. No to pressure, no to interference, no to playing by the old rules. And that simple no, it echoed louder than any speech or summit ever could. This wasn't just some policy debate. It wasn't about aid money or diplomatic drama. This was a direct rejection of Donald Trump himself, a man who built his brand on cutting deals, commanding loyalty, and walking into rooms expecting everyone to fold. But this time, his billion-dollar offers, military partnerships, exclusive trade perks, and flashy promises were all met with something he didn't expect: cold, calculated defiance. Let's break it down. Number 10. Ghana. This wasn't some quiet no. It shook the streets of Accra. Trump's $500 million aid package looked shiny. Roads, energy, data centers, all the buzzwords. But Ghana saw the strings, and they called it what it was: a trap. Buried in the fine print were demands, not diplomacy. Ghana was asked to ditch China's Belt and Road, hand over port access to the US Navy, and spy on China and Russia. That's not a partnership. That's control, wrapped in a smile. But this wasn't 1982, and Ghana wasn't desperate. Within 48 hours, the deal was leaked. The backlash was fierce. Students marched with banners. "We built Kwame Nkrumah's dream, not a Pentagon pipeline." Think tanks, opposition leaders, even insiders called it what it was: economic blackmail. The government didn't blink. No talks, no tweaks, just a firm, unapologetic no. Then Ghana's foreign ministry dropped the hammer, a bold statement reaffirming non-alignment and the right to choose its own path. On its own terms, public support didn't just back the government, it supercharged it. The protests felt less like outrage, more like a celebration of self-respect. "Africa chooses Africa" wasn't just a chant, it became Ghana's pulse. Days after rejecting the US deal, Ghana doubled down on African unity, boosted the AfCFTA, and sealed a fresh development pact with China. Real investments on their terms. What did they lose? Maybe some favor in DC. But what did they gain? Pride, power, and a story the whole continent's watching. Number 9, Nigeria. If Ghana's move was bold, Nigeria's was seismic. Washington thought it held all the cards. But Nigeria isn't just any player, it's Africa's giant. The most populous nation, top oil exporter, and West Africa's economic gatekeeper. Trump's team offered billions: pipelines, refineries, data centers. On paper, a golden handshake. But Abuja saw the catch. It wasn't investment, it was control. And Nigeria didn't flinch. It just said, "Not like this." The real kicker? It wasn't just in the fine print, it was in the strings. The deal gave US energy giants majority control over Nigeria's key oil zones, profits, exports, even legal disputes on America's terms. And Nigeria was supposed to ditch BRICS talks and scrap its plan to refine oil locally. Washington thought it would fold. They were wrong. President Tinubu went live on national TV and shut it down. This isn't partnership. This is economic recolonization in a business suit. Just like that, Nigeria flipped the script. President Tinubu didn't hold back. He called out Washington for trying to repaint exploitation as investment. Lawmakers from all sides backed him. One MP nailed it. "Nigeria is not a well you can rent." Then came the streets. Protests lit up Abuja and Lagos, not in anger, but in pride. One message rang loud: our oil is not up for negotiation. And Nigeria didn't just say no, it moved on. Days later, it signed the South-South Sovereign Energy Pact with Russia and Brazil, giving African nations the right to extract, refine, and own their resources. Washington threatened. Nigeria didn't blink. Because this time, it had options, and it knew it. Number 8. South Africa. While Ghana pushed back and Nigeria stood tall, South Africa faced a different pressure. Choose the West or lose the perks. Trump's team offered billions in trade benefits, high-end surveillance tech, elite military training, but there was a catch: Drop BRICS, drop your allies, fall in line. For South Africa, that wasn't a deal. It was a trap. And the answer was simple: absolutely not. To South Africa, this wasn't just an insult, it was a direct challenge. BRICS isn't just a trade group. It's a statement of independence, a lifeline, and for many, a symbol of post-apartheid pride on the world stage. President Cyril Ramaphosa made it clear in a powerful address: "We won't abandon our allies for short-term favors. We're not a pawn in anyone's game. We are a sovereign nation with a global vision." His speech lit a fire. Universities held forums, activists marched with BRICS solidarity signs, and the message rang loud: Africa chooses multilateralism over manipulation. Within a week, BRICS answered, rolling out fresh investments, tech deals, and a cultural diplomacy pact that showed the world. South Africa had options, and it chose power on its own terms. But here's the real game changer. South Africa's move didn't isolate it, it actually connected it. More African countries started showing interest in joining BRICS or building new regional alliances that left the West's old-school influence out of the picture. What started as Trump's plan to break up BRICS only ended up making it stronger and way more African. Number 7, Ethiopia. Ethiopia didn't whisper. They struck back hard. Trump's offer looked perfect on paper. Drones, satellites, military tech, even Pentagon support. But the fine print told a different story. Not partnership, a silent takeover with American boots and eyes deep in Ethiopian soil. The catch? Ethiopia had to become America's permanent drone hub in East Africa. The fine print was shocking. Exclusive air corridor control, full access to air traffic data, and permission for U.S. military operations. No questions asked. Not partnership, a quiet occupation in disguise. Here's the kicker. The deal gave Washington remote access to surveillance, not just in Ethiopia, but across Eritrea, Somalia, and Sudan. Ethiopia was set to become the U.S.'s eyes and launchpad in the Horn of Africa. But Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed didn't flinch. In Parliament, he fired back, "We are not a subcontractor for global policing. This is legalized espionage disguised as an alliance." Boom. The deal was dead within 24 hours. And then, Ethiopia erupted. Not in chaos, but unity. No bases, no bosses blew up on social media. Everyone from influencers to students was shouting loud and clear, "Ethiopia is not for sale." Abiy's government didn't waste a second. Right after shutting the door on the US, they flipped the script. Suddenly, a joint drone project with Turkey was moving at lightning speed. A brand new National Defense Research Fund was announced. And across the country, a bold new campaign kicked off: modernize Ethiopia's air defense systems, not with foreign help, but with homegrown talent, local engineers, and brilliant diaspora scientists. Ethiopia didn't just say no to American drones, it started building its own wings. Number 6, Kenya. While Ethiopia shut the door on foreign military control, Kenya faced a different fight against legal domination disguised as development. The Trump team offered $3 billion for ports, highways, and smart cities under the East Africa Infrastructure Pact. Kenyan media buzzed, calling it a Marshall Plan for the Kenyan century. But beneath the hype, something felt off. Behind the scenes, alarm bells rang. Legal experts uncovered a shocking clause. All economic disputes would go to U.S. courts under U.S. law, meaning Kenya would lose control over its own infrastructure. Worse, another clause pushed to privatize key assets through U.S.-approved middlemen, risking Kenya's roads, ports, and energy grid falling into foreign hands. President William Ruto acted fast. In a nationally televised address, President Ruto stepped up to the mic and made it crystal clear: "We may borrow, but we do not mortgage our institutions. Our Constitution is not up for negotiation." His tone, calm, measured, but unshakable. A polite but powerful number, and the country felt it, fast. Kenya didn't just walk away, it rallied. The Law Society, reform groups, and business leaders united with one headline blazing across the country: modern colonialism in legal form. But instead of stalling, Kenya pivoted fast, inking a digital deal with India and securing $1.2 billion from the African Development Bank. No strings, no secrets. Just sovereignty. You see, Kenya didn't collapse without US money. It stood taller on its own terms. Number 5. Tanzania. If Kenya drew the line in court, Tanzania drew theirs in the lab. Trump's team offered $700 million in health aid, vaccines, top-tier equipment, even new biotech labs in Dar es Salaam. On paper, it looked like a dream deal, but Tanzania looked closer and saw the catch. But the fine print? It shocked the entire continent. In exchange, Tanzania was expected to become a testing ground for experimental drug trials, with no legal protections, no accountability, and zero rights to the breakthroughs. President Samia Suluhu Hassan didn't stay silent. In Parliament, she called it out, loud and clear. We welcome science. We reject exploitation. We are not guinea pigs for your pharmaceutical laboratories. Not now. Not ever. The backlash from the West came fast. Medical journals slammed her for blocking progress. NGOs accused her government of rejecting life-saving innovation. But inside Africa, it was a different story. Across the continent, her move was seen as a turning point, a bold stand for public health sovereignty. In universities and think tanks, the conversation shifted. Why is Africa always the testing ground and never the tech hub? And President Hassan didn't just walk away from the deal. She built a new path forward. Her government teamed up with the African Union's Health Strategy Center, launched a biotech innovation zone with support from Cuba, and rolled out a national grant to train the next generation of African epidemiologists and bioengineers. The message was clear. Africa doesn't need handouts. It needs a seat at the table and the tools to build its own. Number 4, Algeria. The Trump administration came to Algeria with a shiny offer: cutting-edge AI drones, satellites, and elite intel tech. But the catch? Algeria had to share real-time intel on neighbors like Libya, Mali, and Niger, feeding Washington's strategy, not its own. To Washington, this was a smart strategic move, but to Algiers, it was nothing short of treason. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune took to national TV and didn't hold back. We are not informants, we are protectors. Algeria does not trade regional peace for power. He didn't stop there. Tebboune revealed the full scope. The deal would have let the US monitor all cross-border movements and share that data with European allies, with zero Algerian oversight. The reaction? Explosive. Algeria guards its sovereignty like sacred ground, especially its intelligence. So when the deal meant handing over its skies and secrets, the response was swift. Protests, fiery editorials, and a national outcry for stronger data borders. But Algeria didn't respond by shutting down or isolating itself. Instead, it doubled down and integrated. They kicked off talks with the African Union to build a Pan-African cybersecurity shield, signed a defense and data cooperation deal with Russia, and fast-tracked the development of their own AI-powered surveillance systems, all fully under Algerian control. The message? Algeria wasn't saying no to intelligence. It was saying yes to owning it, reclaiming control on its own terms. Number 3, Senegal. By the time Trump's team got to Senegal, they'd been shut down over oil, surveillance, and sovereignty. But this pitch was different. It targeted democracy itself. Wrapped in promises of funding for civil groups and electoral reform, it looked like goodwill. But Senegal saw the playbook. Then came the twist. A leaked memo from the US State Department hit the headlines, exposing the real agenda. Phrases like steering influence and political engineering made it clear. This wasn't about democracy. It was about control, dressed up as aid. The backlash? Instant and intense. President Macky Sall's government didn't waste a second. They kicked out 2 senior US diplomats, put all USAID election programs on hold, and demanded a formal apology from Washington. But what really made Senegal's response historic was how its people rallied together. Civil society groups took to the streets of Dakar, chanting loud and clear, "Our democracy, our rules." University campuses buzzed with forums and debates about foreign interference. while legal groups pushed for investigations into past foreign-funded NGOs involved in elections. Senegal wasn't just pushing back, it was standing up and taking control of its own future. Senegal didn't flinch. Instead, it leveled up, launching a new AU-backed Electoral Integrity Commission, fully independent from Western influence. The message was loud and clear. Africa's democracy isn't for sale. And the ripple effect? Other nations began rethinking foreign election funding. Senegal made this kind of interference too costly to try again. Number 2, Angola. If Senegal's stand was about political independence, Angola's was all about economic self-respect. The Trump administration rolled out a shiny offer, $5 billion for infrastructure projects, roads, railways, smart power grids, and even plans for a tech innovation hub right in Luanda. On paper, it looked like a total game changer. But here's the twist buried deep in the fine print. Those investments, not gifts or grants, they were high-interest loans tied to US-backed companies with hardly any real ownership going to Angola. On top of that, Angola was expected to cancel all its existing trade deals with China, especially the ones involving rare earth minerals, which are huge for the economy. And if that wasn't enough, US corporations would get exclusive rights to explore Angola's vast, untapped oil fields. Suddenly, this game changer started looking a lot more complicated. President João Lourenço didn't wait for backroom talks. Live on air, he held up the deal and said, "If you want exclusivity, show us the money. Don't dress debt as liberation." Sharp, clear. The US couldn't meet Angola's terms, so Angola walked. No hesitation. In just 72 hours, Angola sealed a $3.7 billion mineral and infrastructure deal with China, then locked a rare earth research pact with Brazil. But this wasn't just a partner switch. It was a clear rejection of the Western development model that's trapped Africa in debt for decades. Angola was saying, no more development at the cost of dignity. Number 1, Egypt. Egypt has long been America's top African ally, receiving over $1.3 billion in annual military aid. Their partnership was built on joint exercises, intelligence sharing, and defense deals. So when Trump's team offered a new security pact with advanced gear and expanded intel access from the Suez to Libya, Washington expected a yes. But there was a catch, a big one. Egypt had to openly back Israel's plan to annex the West Bank, a move that broke decades of Egypt's support for Palestine and shifted the balance in the Arab world toward Trump's Middle East agenda. Backlash hit Egypt fast. President El-Sisi gathered military leaders in opposition, usually divided, but united this time. The demand was a deal breaker. El-Sisi didn't hold back. "We are not for sale. Not in weapons, not in politics, not in blood." Those words rippled through Arabic media and lit a fire across Egypt. The protests that followed weren't against the government. They were in support of its stand, refusing to betray Palestine. Even the Arab League threw rare praise Egypt's way. And surprisingly, political rivals inside Egypt stood united behind this bold move. But Egypt wasn't done yet. Behind the scenes, Egypt struck military deals with China and Russia. The message: the US can't take their loyalty for granted. This was more than opposing annexation. It was about reclaiming control. By saying no to the deal, Egypt drew a clear red line. No superpower gets to make it sacrifice its regional role or its core principles, especially not for cash. And honestly, that message landed way louder and stronger than any official statement ever could. So what do you think? Which country made the boldest move here? Do you feel like this is the start of a new Africa, one that can't be bought or pushed around? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Should these countries have said no from the jump? Or maybe taken the deal, but played it smart, giving nothing back to Trump? Can't wait to hear what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay sharp, stay aware, and stay with us.